There is a man I want you to think about. You have met him before. Maybe not personally, but you have felt his presence. He is the person in the room who never seems rattled. Someone says something sharp, and he does not flinch. Something goes wrong, and he does not collapse. Someone tries to pull him into an argument, and somehow, without effort, without drama, he simply does not go there. And you watch this, and something in you wonders, what does he know that I do not? What has he built inside himself that I have not built yet? How does a person reach that place where the chaos of the world simply does not enter them without permission? That question is what we are going to answer today. But first, I need to tell you something that most people do not want to hear. Something that will make some of you uncomfortable before it sets you free. You are not angry because of what happened to you. You are not bothered because of what they said. You are not disturbed because of what the world did or did not do. You are angry. You are bothered. You are disturbed because of what is already living inside you. Because of the attachments, the wounds, the unexamined beliefs, the fragile identities that exist within you and that the outside world simply touched. The outside world did not create your reaction. It revealed it. And that is the most important distinction I can offer you today. Because the moment you truly understand it, the entire problem changes shape. The question is no longer how do I stop other people from making me angry? The question becomes, what is living inside me that gives other people the power to determine my emotional state? That is the real work, and it is the only work that actually produces lasting change. I have spent decades inside the walls of the Shaolin Temple. Decades of silence, of training, of sitting with my own inner world until I understood it well enough to stop being its prisoner. And everything I want to share with you today comes from that place. Not from theory, not from books. From years of direct experience with the one opponent that every human being must eventually face, themselves. So if you are ready, if you are genuinely ready to stop being at the mercy of other people's words and actions, if you are ready to build the kind of inner stability that means nothing can touch your center without your permission, let us begin. The first thing you must understand is this: you are not your emotions. This sounds simple. It may even sound obvious. But I want you to sit with it for a moment, because the gap between understanding this intellectually and actually living it is one of the widest gaps in all of human experience. Right now, today, think about the last time you were angry, really angry. What happened inside you? Your chest tightened, your breathing changed, your thoughts began moving fast, building arguments, imagining confrontations, replaying moments. Your body became tense, your jaw clenched, your hands may have moved differently. And in that moment, did you feel like you were watching the anger? Or did you feel like you were the anger? For most people, the answer is the second one. They do not experience anger as something moving through them. They experience it as something they become. They say, I am angry, the same way they say I am a man or I am a woman. As if it is identity. As if it is permanent, as if it is who they are, rather than simply what they are currently experiencing. And this confusion, this collapse of the distance between the self and the emotional state, is the root of almost everything we are going to discuss today. At the Shaolin Temple, one of the first and most fundamental things we teach is the practice of the observer. Not a technique, not a method, a way of being. A way of relating to your own inner experience that changes everything about how the world affects you. The observer is the part of you that can watch yourself, that can see the anger rising without becoming the anger, that can feel the frustration without being consumed by it, that can observe the fear without running from it or surrendering to it. Think of the sky. The sky does not change because of the weather. Storms come. Rain falls, thunder shakes the air, and through all of it, the sky remains the sky, unchanging in its nature, unaffected at the deepest level. The weather happens within it, not to it. You are the sky. Your emotions are the weather. They happen within you. They do not define you. They do not own you. They are visitors passing through the space of your awareness, and you are the space, not the visitor. When you begin to actually live from this understanding, something extraordinary happens. You start to notice the moment an emotional state begins to arise before it has fully taken hold. You feel the first warmth of anger in your chest, and instead of immediately following it, you notice it, you observe it, you give it a name. There is anger here, and in that naming, in that small act of observation, you create distance, not suppression, not denial, distance, the distance between the sky and the cloud. This is the beginning of freedom. This is the foundation upon which everything else we are going to build today rests. Because until you can observe your emotions rather than simply becoming them, you are at the mercy of every person and every situation that knows which buttons to press. You are predictable. You are controllable. You are a reaction waiting to happen. But the moment you become the observer, you become something different, something that people can sense before they can name. You become the person whose center does not move. And that quality changes every dynamic you have ever known. Now let us go deeper, because observation alone is not enough. You also need to understand the source. The second thing you must understand is this. You are not bothered by what happened. You are bothered by what you believed it meant. Let me give you a concrete example. Someone ignores you, walks past you without acknowledging you, does not respond to your message, does not invite you to something you expected to be included in. Now the event itself is neutral. A person did not speak to you or respond to you. That is all that happened. That is the totality of the event. But inside you, a story begins immediately. They think they are better than me. They are disrespecting me. I am not important to them. I am not valued. I am not seen. I am not enough. And it is not the event that creates the pain. It is the story. It is the meaning your mind attached to the event in the fraction of a second before you even consciously processed what happened. Every emotional reaction you have ever had to another person or to a situation was not a reaction to the reality of what occurred. It was a reaction to the story your mind told about what occurred. And that story was written not by what happened, but by what already lived inside you. If you carry a belief that you are not important, then being ignored confirms it, and the pain is enormous. If you carry a belief that you must always be respected, then any perceived disrespect triggers a defense response that feels like survival. If you carry a belief that the world is against you, then every obstacle becomes evidence of that belief, and every person who inconveniences you becomes part of a pattern that your mind has decided is real. These beliefs are the real source of your anger, the real source of your disturbance, the real reason why some things bother you that do not bother other people, and some things that would destroy other people leave you completely unmoved. Because we do not all carry the same beliefs. We do not all tell the same stories. We are not all protecting the same wounds, and so we do not all react to the same things. At the temple, we spend enormous time with students exploring this, not because we want them to become philosophers, but because a person who does not know what they believe will be forever at the mercy of those beliefs. They will spend their life reacting to symptoms without ever addressing causes. Think about a wound on the surface of the skin. If you do not know it is there, you will flinch every time something comes near it. You will avoid certain movements. You will protect that area without understanding why. And the wound will never heal because you never addressed it directly. You just kept protecting it. Many people carry emotional wounds exactly like this. Old experiences, old moments of rejection, old feelings of not being enough, or not being safe, or not being loved, that have never been examined, never been sat with, never been given the space to be properly processed. And so they remain beneath the surface, sensitive to any touch, causing reactions that seem disproportionate to what actually happened. Someone says something mildly critical, and you feel rage. Someone sets a boundary, and you feel abandoned. Someone does not respond immediately, and you feel panic. The present moment is being filtered through an old wound, and the reaction belongs to the past, not the present. This is one of the deepest truths of the inner work. You must know your wounds, not to live in them, not to make them your identity, not to use them as excuse or as armor, but to see them clearly. To understand what they are and where they came from and what they make you believe about yourself and the world. Because the moment you can see a wound clearly, you stop being controlled by it. When someone ignores you and you feel that old familiar pain, instead of immediately following the anger, you can pause. You can say to yourself, "There is the wound. I recognize it. I know what it believes. But is it true right now? Is this actually about what I think it is about? Or is this an old story being triggered by a new event?" That moment of questioning is extraordinarily powerful. It creates the space we talked about before. It turns you from a reaction into a choice. And a person who lives from choice, rather than reaction, is a fundamentally different kind of human being. The third thing you must understand is about attachment. Because beneath almost every anger, beneath almost every disturbance, there is an attachment. Something you are clinging to. Something you have decided must be a certain way. Something you believe you cannot be at peace without. When it is there, you are fine. When it is threatened or removed, you suffer. And you may have spent years blaming the world for removing it without ever asking why you were so dependent on it in the first place. The Shaolin path teaches a very direct relationship with attachment, not because attachment is morally wrong, not as a rule to follow, but as a practical observation about where suffering originates. Everything that can be taken from you will eventually be taken, not to punish you, simply because that is the nature of impermanence. People change, circumstances change. The approval you receive today may not be there tomorrow. The position you hold today may not be there next year. The relationship that feels solid today contains within it the seeds of its own inevitable change. If your peace lives inside any of these things, your peace is not actually yours. It is borrowed. And borrowed peace is incredibly fragile. It can be ended by a conversation, by a decision someone else makes, by a shift in how someone sees you that you have no control over. I want to tell you about a student who came to train with us many years ago. He was a successful man by almost every external measure. He had achieved what most people spend their lives pursuing. But he could not find peace. Someone would criticize his work, and he would be shaken for days. A relationship would shift, and he would lose his center for weeks. A plan would fail, and he would question everything he had built. He came to me and he said, "Why can I not find peace? I have everything I was told would bring it." And I asked him one question: "Where have you placed the condition for your peace?" He thought about it for a long time, and then quietly he said, "In things outside myself. When people respect me, when my work succeeds, when the people I love are happy with me. When the plan works out as I intended, that is when I feel peace," I said to him. "You have built your peace on ground that someone else controls. No wonder it keeps disappearing." This is not a small realization. It is a life-changing one. Because the moment you truly see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice every time you have handed the conditions for your own peace to something or someone outside yourself. And you begin to understand that this is not unavoidable. This is a habit, and habits can be changed. The practice is to find your peace before the conditions are met. To sit in silence and locate the part of you that is not disturbed, the part of you that exists beneath the approval and the achievement, and the relationship, and the outcome, the part that was there before any of it, and will be there after all of it. That part is real. That part is you. And when you learn to live from that part, when you make that your home, rather than the shifting outer circumstances, something transforms completely. You stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. You stop requiring outcomes to meet your expectations in order to maintain your center. You stop being a hostage to the impermanence of things. And when that happens, when you are no longer in desperate need of the world to be a certain way, you stop being angered by the world being some other way. Not because you become passive, not because you stop caring about anything, but because your peace is no longer stored in a place where the world can reach it. Now, let us talk about the practical side, because understanding these truths is essential, but understanding alone does not change behavior. We must also practice. We must build actual habits that train the mind and the nervous system over time. The first practice I want to give you is the breath. I know, you have heard this before. Everyone talks about breathing, and because everyone talks about it, most people dismiss it as too simple to be truly powerful. But let me tell you what the breath actually is, and why it is the most direct access point you have to your own nervous system. When you are angry, your breathing changes. It becomes shallow, faster, the chest tightens, the exhale shortens, and this pattern of breathing actively maintains the physiological state of anger. It keeps the stress hormones flowing. It keeps the body in the belief that there is a threat. It keeps the whole system primed for reaction. When you consciously slow the breath, when you make the exhale longer than the inhale, when you breathe into the belly rather than the chest, you are not just calming down psychologically. You are sending a direct signal to the nervous system that there is no threat, that it is safe to return to balance, that the reaction is no longer needed. This is not soft. This is physiological mastery. This is using your own biology against the pattern rather than being used by it. At the Shaolin Temple, breath training is as fundamental as any physical discipline. We understand that the person who controls their breath in a moment of crisis controls everything else that follows, and the person who loses their breath loses their mind, their words, their choices. Practice this when nothing is wrong. Sit quietly and breathe deliberately. Long, slow inhale. Longer, slower exhale. Do this every day, even for 5 minutes, and you are building a reflex. A trained response that will begin to activate automatically when the moment of anger or disturbance arrives, because in that moment, you will not have time to think your way to calm. You must have already built the path. You must have already trained the nervous system to know the way back to center, so that when the storm rises, the path home is already there. The second practice is creating the pause. We talked about this earlier when we discussed the observer. But now I want to make it concrete, practical, something you can actually do in the heat of the moment. When you feel anger or disturbance beginning to rise, before you speak, before you act, before you send the message or make the call or say the thing you cannot unsay, pause, not for a long time, even 3 seconds, even 1 breath, but an intentional, conscious pause, where you step back from the edge of the reaction and ask yourself one question. Who do I want to be in this moment? Not what do they deserve, not what is fair, not what would feel satisfying right now. Who do I want to be? Because anger always knows what it wants to do. The question is whether you want the same thing. In many years of working with students, I have never met a person who, in the aftermath of a genuine moment of rage, felt proud of everything they said and did in that moment. Never. Because rage is not wisdom. It is the oldest part of the brain taking over in the belief that survival is threatened. And survival responses do not produce the outcomes you want in modern human relationships. The pause is where your higher mind can come online, where you can access something beyond the automatic response, where you can choose. And every time you choose, every time you pause and act from intention rather than impulse, you strengthen that capacity. You build a different reflex. Slowly, over time, the pause becomes shorter because it becomes more natural. The space between stimulus and response that you had to fight to create becomes something you inhabit more automatically. This is training, just like physical training. It does not happen in one session. It builds through repetition, through consistency, through the daily discipline of choosing, even in small moments, to pause before you react. The third practice is what I call returning to the body. When we are angry or disturbed, the mind becomes very loud, the thoughts race, the stories multiply, the imagination begins constructing worst-case scenarios, imagining confrontations, rehearsing arguments, playing out dramas that have not happened and may never happen. And while the mind is doing all of this, the body is sitting right here, in this moment, breathing, feeling the temperature of the air, the weight of the ground beneath it. When you feel the emotional storm rising, bring your attention down from the noise of the mind and into the direct physical experience of the body. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Feel the temperature of your hands. Notice the specific sensations in your body without labeling them as good or bad, without telling a story about them. Just feel them directly. This simple act does something remarkable. It interrupts the mental loop. It brings you out of the story and into the actual present moment. And the present moment, the actual physical here and now, is almost always much less threatening than the story your mind is telling about it. The anger often lives in the story, not in the present moment. When you return to the body, you give yourself a chance to discover this. To notice that right now, in this actual moment, you are okay. The threat is not physical. The survival is not actually at stake. And from that recognition, the physiological response can begin to settle. This is a practice that can be done anywhere. In the middle of a difficult conversation, in traffic, in the moment before you respond to a message that has provoked you. You do not need to close your eyes. You do not need to announce what you are doing. You simply bring your attention home to the body for one moment and let that ground you. The fourth practice is about the stories you tell yourself, specifically the habit of questioning them. We talked earlier about how it is never the event itself that creates your anger. It is the meaning you attach to it, the story, the interpretation. The practice is to develop the habit of questioning the story before you accept it as truth. When something happens that triggers a reaction in you, before you act on that reaction, ask yourself these three questions. Is this definitely true? Not probably true. Not feels true. Definitely, verifiably true. Is there another possible explanation? Could there be a reason for what happened that has nothing to do with the story my mind just created? And what is the cost of this story? What does believing this interpretation cost me in terms of peace, energy, and the choices I am about to make? These questions do not always change the conclusion. Sometimes the thing is exactly as bad as it seems. But even then, the questioning slows the automatic process. It creates a moment of examination between the event and the reaction. And that moment is where your freedom lives. At the temple, we call this right understanding, and it is considered one of the most essential skills a practitioner can develop, because a person who consistently misunderstands the causes of their own suffering will spend their entire life fighting symptoms while the actual causes remain untouched. You might spend years managing your anger, controlling it, suppressing it, finding outlets for it, all without ever asking the real question: why does this keep arising in me? What is this revealing about what I believe about myself and about the world? Right understanding turns you toward that question. And the answer, when you find it, does not just help you manage the anger. It begins to dissolve the conditions that create it. The fifth practice is perhaps the hardest and the most important. Sit with yourself in silence, not with a podcast, not with music, not with your phone nearby as a comfort. In actual silence, alone with your own mind. I know this sounds uncomfortable. For many people, it is intensely uncomfortable, because silence removes all the external inputs that we use to avoid ourselves. And when those inputs are gone, what is left is everything we have been running from. The unresolved feelings, the unexamined beliefs, the grief we have not let ourselves grieve, the loneliness we have been filling with noise, the fears we have been outrunning with busyness, the anger whose actual source we have never been willing to sit and discover. But everything we run from follows us. It does not disappear because we distract ourselves from it. It waits. And while it waits, it drives our behavior from below the surface. It creates reactions we cannot explain, patterns we cannot seem to break, relationship dynamics that keep repeating no matter who we are with. The practice of sitting in silence is the practice of stopping the running, of turning around and facing what is there, of saying to the parts of yourself you have been avoiding, I am here now. I am listening. Tell me what you need. This takes courage. More courage than almost any physical discipline requires. Because the body's resistance to physical training is manageable, but the mind's resistance to self-examination is deep and sophisticated and endlessly creative in the excuses it generates. But those who do this, those who commit to a regular practice of sitting in silence and actually meeting themselves, those people develop something that cannot be developed any other way. They develop self-knowledge, real self-knowledge, the kind that allows them to watch themselves in real time, to catch the emotional patterns as they are beginning, rather than after they have fully taken hold, to understand their own triggers so clearly that those triggers begin to lose their power, because you cannot be ambushed by something you have already seen. When you know that a particular kind of comment makes you feel small because it touches a wound from your past, the comment still comes, but it does not ambush you anymore. You see it arriving, you recognize the mechanism, and from that recognition comes a choice, not an automatic reaction, a choice. That is what daily silence gives you. Not peace in the sense of nothing ever disturbing you, but peace in the deeper sense of having a home inside yourself that disturbances cannot reach. Now I want to talk about something that very few people discuss when they talk about anger and emotional control, and that is the role of the people around you. Because the practices I have shared will make you stronger. They will give you more capacity. They will expand your ability to remain centered under pressure. But they cannot and should not be expected to make you completely immune to the influence of your environment. You are not a machine. You are a human being embedded in relationships and communities and environments that shape you continuously. And if those environments are consistently toxic, consistently draining, consistently full of people who are operating from their worst selves, your practices will be fighting an uphill battle every single day. The Shaolin path is clear about this. We teach that the warrior is responsible not only for what happens inside himself, but for the conditions in which he places himself. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can make choices about where you spend your time, whose energy you allow close to you, which environments you return to again and again. Think about the people in your life right now, not all of them, but the ones who consistently leave you feeling drained, consistently agitated, consistently worse than you were before the interaction, the ones after whose company you need time alone to recover your own sense of self. I am not telling you to abandon everyone who is difficult. Relationships are complex. People are going through things. Growth requires sometimes staying in the difficulty and learning from it. But I am asking you to be honest, because some relationships are not difficult in a way that makes you grow. They are difficult in a way that depletes without teaching, that takes without giving, that operates on your energy as if it is a resource to be consumed. And the person who fills every hour of their day with these relationships and then wonders why they cannot maintain inner calm is asking the wrong question. The question is not how do I stay calm in an impossible environment? The question is why am I still choosing this environment? Protect your inner world, not selfishly, not without compassion for others, but with the understanding that you cannot pour from an empty vessel, and the peace you are working to build is not just for you. It is for everyone you touch. Every person you interact with benefits when you come to them from a place of genuine stability rather than depleted reactivity. Now I want to talk about something deeper, something that sits beneath all the practices and the philosophy we have been discussing. I want to talk about forgiveness, not because it is a nice thing to do, not because it is morally required, but because without it, genuine freedom from anger is not actually possible. Let me explain what I mean. When someone wrongs you, truly wrongs you, and you carry that, something very specific happens. You carry the weight of the experience everywhere you go. You replay it. You build cases around it. You explain it to people. You return to it in quiet moments when you should be resting. You allow the person who harmed you to continue harming you, in your own mind, long after the original event is over. The person who hurt you has moved on. They are living their life. They may not think about the incident at all, while you are still there, still in that moment, still feeling the original wound and all the wounds you have created by returning to it again and again. This is what unforgiveness does. It does not punish the person who wronged you. It imprisons you. You become the jailer and the prisoner at the same time, spending years of your precious life energy keeping alive something that only hurts you. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was acceptable. It is not pretending the harm did not happen. It is not returning to a relationship that was harmful or trusting someone who has shown themselves to be untrustworthy. Forgiveness is the act of putting down the weight, of deciding that you will no longer carry this, not for their sake, for yours. At the temple, we teach that the capacity to forgive is one of the highest expressions of inner strength, because it requires you to choose your own freedom over the satisfaction of holding the resentment. And resentment, despite how it feels, is seductive. It gives us a sense of being right, of being the wronged party, of having something to hold on to, something solid in a painful situation. But that solidity is a trap, and the energy required to maintain it, year after year, is energy that could have been building something beautiful. Release it, not because they deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve your freedom. I also want to speak about something else that lives close to anger, and that is the anger we carry toward ourselves. Because for many people, the harshest voice in their life is not external. It lives inside. It is the voice that says, you should have known better. You should have done more. You are not enough. You keep making the same mistakes. You will never really change. And this inner anger, this constant self-judgment and self-criticism is exhausting in a way that external conflict never quite matches, because you cannot walk away from yourself. You cannot take a break from the inner critic. It is there in the morning and in the night, and in all the quiet moments in between. The same practice that frees you from external anger applies here. The observer practice, the questioning of stories, the recognition that this harsh voice is not truth. It is a conditioned pattern, something that was learned, possibly very early in life, and has been running automatically ever since. When the inner critic speaks, practice meeting it with curiosity rather than agreement. Ask it, is this actually true? Is this serving me? Is this the voice of wisdom, or is this the voice of an old wound that never healed? And practice something that may feel strange at first. Practice directing toward yourself the same patience and understanding you would offer someone you genuinely care about. Because the capacity for self-compassion is not weakness. It is the foundation of genuine inner strength. A person who is constantly at war with themselves can never fully be at peace with the world. Now let us come to something that I believe is the most misunderstood aspect of emotional mastery. The goal is not to feel nothing. I want to be completely clear about this, because there is a version of the teaching about controlling your emotions that becomes, in practice, the suppression of your emotions. A kind of cold performance, a numbness that looks like peace from the outside, but is actually just a more sophisticated form of running. True mastery is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of awareness alongside the feeling. You feel everything: the anger, the hurt, the longing, the disappointment, the joy, the love, all of it. You are fully human, fully alive, fully present to the experience of being in this extraordinary and sometimes terrible and sometimes magnificent world. But you are the sky that the weather moves through. Not the weather. You feel the anger, and you do not become it. You feel the hurt, and you do not let it become your entire world. You feel the joy, and you do not cling to it so desperately that its natural passing creates suffering. This is what we are building, not stone, not coldness, not the performance of someone who has decided feelings are weakness, but a deep-rooted, spacious awareness that can hold whatever arises without being defined by it or destroyed by it. A river does not stop being a river because a storm passes through it. It swells and it surges, and it moves with tremendous force. But when the storm passes, it returns to its course. It finds its banks again. Not because it suppressed the storm, but because it was always, beneath the surface, still a river. You are always, beneath whatever emotion is moving through you, still yourself, still aware, still the witness, still the sky. And the practice of all these things we have discussed is simply the practice of returning to that truth, again and again and again, until returning to it becomes so natural that leaving it becomes the thing that takes effort, rather than coming home. Let me bring everything together now, because I want you to leave today, not just with understanding, but with a clear sense of what to actually do. Starting today, starting with this very next interaction you have, the first thing, begin practicing the observer. When an emotion arises, name it. There is anger here. There is frustration here. There is fear here. Do not become it. Watch it. Even for one moment before you respond. That moment is the beginning of everything. The second thing, question the story. Whatever interpretation your mind immediately creates about what happened, pause and ask, is this definitely true? Is there another way to see this? Give reality a chance to be more complex and more forgiving than your automatic mind wants it to be. The third thing, train your breath. Every day, even for 5 minutes. Build the physiological pathway back to calm so that in the moment of storm, your body knows the way home without you having to think about it. The fourth thing, sit in silence every day, even for 10 minutes. Face yourself. Listen to what is there. Stop running from your own inner world and start building a relationship with it, because you will spend more time with yourself than with anyone else in your life. Make that relationship the best one you have. The fifth thing, examine your attachments. Where have you placed the conditions for your peace? In someone's approval, in a particular outcome, in being understood or respected, or loved in a specific way. Notice it. Not to condemn yourself for it, but to begin the gentle process of finding your peace somewhere less fragile, somewhere inside rather than outside. The sixth thing, practice forgiveness, starting with the easiest thing you are holding, not the deepest wound, something smaller. Practice the act of putting it down and noticing how that feels. Build the muscle before you need to use it for the heavy things. And the seventh thing, be patient with yourself. This is a path, not a destination you arrive at and then you are done. It is a daily practice, a lifelong practice. And there will be days when you react before you remember to pause. Days when the anger wins. Days when you look back at how you handled something and know you could have done better. These days are not failures. They are information. They are the teachers. They show you exactly where more practice is needed. And the practitioner who understands this can respond to their own imperfection with curiosity rather than condemnation. I want to leave you with a truth that has stayed with me for many decades, a truth I return to in my own moments of difficulty and disturbance. Nothing outside you has the power to take your peace unless you hand it over. Not the words of another person, not the actions of the world, not the disappointments of circumstance, or the failures of people you trusted, or the plans that did not unfold as you intended. None of it can reach your center without your permission, and your permission is given through your attention, through what you choose to believe about what happens, through the stories you accept as truth, through the attachments you decide to maintain, through the willingness to keep your peace inside something that can be taken. When you understand this fully and begin to live by it, something shifts. Quietly, gradually, but permanently. The things that used to make you react for hours now pass in minutes. The people who used to occupy your mind for days begin to take less space. The disturbances that used to feel unbearable begin to feel like weather, real, present, but passing. And you begin to discover something that you may have suspected was possible, but never fully believed. There is a place inside you that has always been still, always been whole, always been unaffected at the deepest level by the storms that moved through it. A place that was there before anyone ever hurt you. Before you learned to be afraid. Before the world taught you that your peace was conditional. That place is your true home. The practices we have discussed are not about creating something new. They are about returning to something ancient, something that belongs to you completely and has always been yours. The anger is real. The disturbance is real. The difficulty of other people and of life itself is real. I am not asking you to pretend otherwise, but you are more real than any of it. You are the sky, and the sky has never been damaged by any storm that passed through it. Return to the sky, again and again. As many times as it takes, for as long as it takes, because every return is a homecoming, and eventually, the distance between where you are and where you need to be becomes so small that you can no longer tell the difference. That is the path. That is the practice. That is the answer to the question we began with today. How do you never get angry or bothered by anyone? You do not become someone without feelings. You become someone who knows where feelings live. You do not become someone who cannot be touched. You become someone who chooses what they allow to enter. You do not become someone the world cannot affect. You become someone whose center does not move, regardless of what the world does. You become, in the deepest and most complete sense of the word, free. That freedom is available to you. It has always been available to you. It does not require a temple, or a teacher, or a perfect set of circumstances. It requires only one thing, the decision to begin. Begin today. Begin now. Begin with the very next moment where something rises in you, and you catch it just a little sooner than you did yesterday. That is enough. That is the whole practice. One moment at a time. One breath at a time. One return to the sky at a time. Until one day you look back and realize you cannot remember the last time the world reached your center without permission. And on that day, you will understand what stillness truly is. Not the absence of storm, but the presence of the sky.